My friends, there are 5 incredibly important essential skills that all intermediate guitar players should have. This is exactly what separates the beginner and early intermediate players from the ones that are making some real progress, potentially hitting a professional level over the next couple of years. Since most guitar players out there are self-taught, a lot of them don't even know about these skills and how important they are. So with this video, I want to share these 5 skills with you, but to give you an unfair advantage, I also want to show you the best possible exercises you can use for your daily practice routine to master them. So let's start with the first one right away. So the first skill that intermediate players definitely should have is being able to visualize the fretboard in a practical way. And that doesn't just mean being able to see the notes like F right here on the 1st fret on the low E string, or G right here on the 12th fret on the G string, and so on. It means being able to see the correct notes and intervals whenever you're improvising freely, for example. So playing interesting lines on the spot without having to rely on scale boxes or licks that you memorized, really just seeing all the possible options on the fretboard. And a really cool shortcut to getting there is working on triads. Check out the first exercise. So as you could see and hear, this is not really a technical exercise. Of course, you are working with alternate picking right here to make it a little bit more challenging. So down, up for all the notes, and you're transitioning between the strings quite a lot. When it comes to technique, you also want to make sure to nicely connect every single shape that you're playing. So you don't want it to sound like this, or something like that. Notice how I'm nicely sliding into every single triad shape that I'm playing. But technique aside, since this is not a technical exercise, it's about visualizing the notes and intervals of each triad that you're playing. First, I was playing through the major triads, and then I was playing through the minor triads on the top 3 strings. So I was playing the G major triads and then the G minor triads. First I had the root G right here on the high E string on the 3rd fret. So I was playing major 3rd, perfect 5th and root note. All the notes that I need to make a major triad. Then in the next position I was playing the perfect 5th on the bottom, then the root note sandwiched in the middle and the major 3rd on top. Once again, the exact same notes that I was playing down there, but in a different order and different position on the neck. For the next shape, I was playing the root note on the bottom, then the major 3rd and the perfect 5th as the highest note. And then, great news, things start repeating right away, because the last shape is the same as the first one, just played 1 octave higher. So by just memorizing those 3 super simple shapes, I can play the major triads all across the neck already. Or even up until the 24th fret if I wanted to. When you're practicing this, just make sure to actually think about the intervals. So where's the root note, the 5th and the 3rd in those voicings? Because then you can just change 1 note, for example. For the minor 3rds, I'm turning the major 3rd into a minor 3rd for those voicings. That's the only thing that's changing. So for the first shape, instead of playing the major 3rd on the bottom, I'm switching that for the minor 3rd. And I immediately have the minor triad. So I don't have to learn anything new, I just have to swap the major 3rds in all those voicings for minor 3rds, and then I can play the minor 3rds all across the neck. And I think you can immediately see why learning the triads all across the neck is such an important tool to unlock the full fretboard. This will not only help with playing those triads or full chords, it will help with always finding the right notes when you're improvising without being bound to playing the same scale shapes all the time. By the way, my friend, all of these really helpful exercises are part of the brand new practice package I made exclusively for my guitar students on patreon.com/burn. This brand new package comes with really helpful practice play-along videos so that you can practice all these exercises together with me in your next routine. You can also download the backing tracks with and without my guitar, a helpful PDF tab sheet, and of course the guitar profiles for all of the workouts. And even better than that, all of my guitar students on Patreon also have access to my full premium guitar technique courses, like the 30-day alternate picking masterclass or the 30-day legato course. These full course packages come with a detailed practice plan that tells you exactly what to practice, how to practice and when to practice over the course of 30 days. And if you're a self-taught guitar player and you developed a couple of bad picking or fretting hand technique habits over the years, this will help you with finally getting rid of them. So right now at the start of this new year, it's the perfect opportunity to finally get serious about your guitar progress. Become my student for real today. Click the link down below, patreon.com/bernd. I'm waiting for you inside. But for now, let's continue with the video. Now, the next thing that makes people intermediate or even professional players is being great with timing. A lot of players in my online guitar academy aren't quite sure how to actually work on timing in their practice routines. Most of them really enjoy working on techniques like this, pushing the speed, all that fun stuff. But if your playing doesn't line up perfectly with the metronome, you will always sound like a beginner player no matter how fast or how clean you're actually playing. So a really helpful and super simple way of improving your timing is working on an exercise like this. Check it out. So as you could see for this exercise, I was working with a very simple chord voicing. A lot of people call it the Hendrix chord. He really loved using that one. And for the first two measures of the exercise, I was just playing 1/8 note right at the start of the measure. That might sound quite easy. It's not hard to do technically, just one downstroke all across the strings and playing just this 1/8 note. But I want to make sure to play it perfectly on time. And as you could hear, there's no metronome or no drums guiding you once the exercise starts. So you have to count the subdivisions in your head. I'm personally thinking in 1/8 notes because the tempo is quite slow. So I'm counting the 1/8 notes in my head to perfectly land on the 1 in the next measure of the exercise. And then something a little bit tricky happens for the final two measures. I'm not playing on the 1 anymore, I'm playing on the 1 and. So an upstroke, it's 1 and, like that. Make sure to download your practice files for it so that you can loop it and just play with the drums. Count the subdivisions in your head. You can either work with numbers like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 or with something like the conical system where you're working with phrases like ta, ka, di, mi, for example. Whatever system you use to count in your head and to really feel the rhythm, make sure to think in 1/8 notes for slow tempos like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And not just in quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. That should really help you with nailing those accents right at the start of those measures. I would suggest working on this for at least 5 to 10 minutes in your daily practice routine if you feel like your timing is lacking a little bit. Dare to practice at crazy tempos like 30 or 40 beats per minute, so super slow, and try to really lock in with the tempo without any kind of visual aid or any kind of metronome, just those programmed drum hits, and try to line up your playing exactly with the drums. It's much harder than it looks and sounds, but this will really tighten up your playing. The next topic is all about finger control, and this is something that all intermediate guitar players have to be great at. I'm not just talking about things like the nasty flying pinky finger, that illness that most of guitar players have when their pinky finger is bending away from the neck as they're playing. I also want to address really feeling every single finger as you're playing. So for example, really feeling the middle ring and pinky fingers without the index finger always pressing down to support them. If you want to play fast and controlled lines, especially with a big focus on legato techniques like this, your fingers have to move independently across the neck. And one exercise that has really helped me with that recently is this one. Check it out. So this one is quite painful, not so much in a physical or literal sense, more for your brain, because your fingers will really fight you when you try to play. As you could see, the main goal is keeping the pinky finger close to the fret that you're playing on for the first note of the phrase. So it's not pressing down for the whole duration of the exercise because you don't want any overlapping notes like this. You're just lifting it slightly. So it's hovering right above the string like this. So I'm trying to keep my fingers as relaxed as possible, just slightly lifting my pinky finger while I'm playing through the scale. And then to make it more challenging, I'm also moving it up 2 frets so that I'm training the position switching, so to say, with my fretting hand fingers. So this one is a real finger twister, but if you focus on keeping the pinky close to the neck, this will really creep into your playing as soon as you work on scales. And having this one in your routine, once again for just a couple of minutes every single day, will give you great results with additional finger control over just a couple of weeks. So give it a try. The next really important skill is something I like to call rhythmic independence, because most of the time what we're doing with the fretting hand is perfectly synced with what's happening with the picking hand, right? For example, with alternate picking. One picking stroke for every single note that I'm playing, or even when you're working with legato, so with hammer-ons and pull-offs, the fretting hand is usually thinking in the same subdivisions as the other hand. But with the next exercise, I want to challenge you to think independently with both your hands, so they have to work on their own and it still needs to fit perfectly together. Here's what this is all about. Check out this exercise. So for this one, I was always just playing 3 notes on the open string, just picking the open B string, down, up, down. And I'm thinking in triplets, so 1, 2, 3, da, 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 1, 2, 3, da, da, da. And right where I wasn't playing with the picking hand, I'm filling up the rest of the measure with notes where I'm just hammering onto the neck with my fretting hand. So very slowly it looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So for those fretted notes, I'm not picking the first note, which is what a lot of people would do. I'm really just hammering onto the neck, only using my fretting hand. So 3 notes with my picking hand, 3 notes with my fretting hand, and always alternating between that. And playing perfect triplets is really, really hard when you're doing that, because your hands have to be rhythmically independent. If I speed it up a bit more, it sounds like this. Which is a pretty cool sound, but it only sounds great when you're playing perfect triplets. So 3 perfect triplets with your right hand and then 3 perfect triplets with the fretting hand. And working on this really cool rhythmic independence exercise for a couple of minutes each day will not just help out with tightening up your playing even more. It kind of trains your individual brains, if you want to think of it like that. Almost like your picking hand has a different brain than your fretting hand. So what you're playing doesn't always have to be super connected. You can think in almost different subdivisions with both your hands and use them independently, which will result in much more interesting licks and riffs. And the final skill all intermediate players should be able to master concerns the fretting hand once again, and it's the topic of finger rolling. I know, probably not your favorite one, but most players do not work on this enough in their practice routines and they can't play cool arpeggios like this fast and clean because they can't separate the notes by rolling their fingers. So with this exercise, I want to help you out with finally mastering this. Check out how cool this actually sounds. So for this one, I'm always starting out with 16th notes with the arpeggio, and I already have to roll my fingers for that. So I start out with a hammer-on from E to G. Then I have 2 notes on the 9th fret right here. So I'm rolling my ring finger to separate those 2 notes. And then I have 1 note on the 8th fret. I'm playing G once again on the B string with my middle finger. Sweeping with my picking hand, so just letting the pick fall basically. And then when I come back down in this direction, so down when it comes to the pitch of the notes, I have a relatively quick sweep where I have to separate the notes with my rolling finger in the other direction. So a pretty cool pattern that you can only kind of play very fast when you roll your finger. In the second half, I also have a diminished arpeggio in there where I don't have to roll. It just sounds cool melodically. And then I'm finishing right here with the most tricky rolling because I have to roll across the 12th fret and that often results in some natural harmonics. So this only works when you really mastered your rolling movement, and it's my favorite exercise of today because it sounds really cool. You're training your picking, so your sweep picking, you're training your fretting hand, your rolling and your synchronization. So if you're looking for a fun workout that's also technically quite challenging and pushes your technique further, I would say practicing this one for a couple of minutes each day will not just be great for your finger rolling, it's also great for your picking and synchronization and a lot of other topics, and it also sounds really cool, so give it a try.